It is just a huge honor for me today to be podcast interviewing David Lee, who grew up in Taiwan, and after high school, he came to study in the U.S. He's a graduate of the University of Pacific with a bio degree and a graduate of the University of Michigan Dental School. He is currently in a one-year orthodontic internship in New York. He hopes to share his journey on the podcast so more people listening to Dental Town can relate and benefit as much as he has loved and learned from the dental podcast. And but David, it's such an honor to have you on there. And you just graduated 3 months ago, and you sent me some questions, and I saw those questions, and my team thought, my God, every dental graduate's going to have those questions. So we said, let's see if he, because I know a lot of people, everything's personal. And most people just say, no. I mean, they say public speaking is the number one fear, but I've never gone to a funeral and heard someone say, well, at least he's not giving a speech. And so thanks for having the kahunas to come on and be humble that you just got out of school and you got questions. And so how's it feel to now be out of dental school and in the real working world?
Man. Well, it feels like there's so much more to learn and to figure out. Dental school kind of just taught us like the bare bones, the basics. And I feel like I just there's such a big world out there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I'll just read some of your questions. You said, despite being ranked top 20 out of 109 at University of Michigan, you didn't get into ortho residency last year, but you're still passionate about ortho and open to career shifts. You're contemplating not doing a residency anymore, and I'm passionate about sharing orthodontic knowledge with general dentists. But now you're doing what? An orthodontic internship. So talk about that and your question regarding that.
Yeah. So there are a couple of orthodontic intern programs in the US. And basically, as an intern, you do everything except direct clinical patient care. You attend all the lectures, all their wire bending classes, learn ortho. And the intention for the interns is to reapply again to ortho residency. And I felt like you learn everything the residents do. So that's what I've been doing. And the interesting thing is I'm faced with the fork road, which is my parents have spent 600K on my education so far. And they could be dumping another 300, bumping it up to 1 million if I do choose to go to an ortho program that's 3 years, because a lot of them are 100K tuition alone. And this is like a really important decision whether I should like go straight to work or can I do ortho work or do I need more school, etc.
Do they live here or in Taiwan?
They're in Taiwan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that I noticed that they're building in Phoenix. I mean, you can see the cranes from outer space. Or that Taiwan Semiconductor Company is building a new factory in Phoenix by Intel, and it's the largest structure I've ever seen. I mean, I think they have like 20 cranes. I mean, anywhere in town, you look one way and you see South Mountain, you look another way, Camelback Mountain, you look another way, and it's like all these cranes building this monstrosity of a building. Well, first, let's just talk about specialties. I mean, the average specialist makes $100,000 more than general dentist. So if they spent $300,000, the average dental specialist makes $320,000, whereas a general dentist makes $197,000. Let's just call them $300,000 and $200,000. So you get $100,000 a year more for your whole life. So yeah, in 3 years, making $100,000 a year more. Owning your own practice is another $100,000. So when you're looking at someone's math, like when you're saying, well, I want to have an associate dentist work for me. Well, what would be the macroeconomic median range, standard deviation one, of how much you could possibly make off this? Well, it's about $100,000 a year off an associate. Owner operators make $100,000 more than associates. Specialists make $100,000 more than general practitioners. Oral surgeons make the most. They're at like $450. Periodontists $330. Endodontists $307. Pediatric $304. Orthodontists, like say $300. So, and another thing is on these specialty programs, if you go to law school, everybody wants to know what law school you go to. But if you go to ortho specialty school, no one's going to ask you where you went to ortho specialty school. And it's an industry in the Caribbean. I think Dominican Republic has 11 dental schools alone. I mean, and everything's so cheaper there, and you could live in better weather. But my God, you could go to any specialty school in the Caribbean tomorrow. You could go to Aruba. It'd only be which island you want to go to: Aruba, Dominican Republic. I mean, there's just so many. But we saw this with dental implants. Remember in Texas where these people were advertising that they're an implantologist, and the local dental society sued them, and it went to court, and the court was all confused. They're like, okay, American Dental Association, you're a membership club. What do you think? You're the state board of dental examiners? What the hell are you doing? They threw the whole suit out. If you can say your practice is limited to orthodontics. Now, you can't say I'm an orthodontic specialist who has an MS degree from Baylor or something. You can't lie. But if you say practice limited to orthodontics, and I want to tell you something about the endodontists. The greatest endodontist legends of our time never went to endo school. Talk about the founder of Thermophil. Ben Johnson. These were guys who came out of school, and a lot of the great ones have now passed away. They just had they'd be in a town of like 10 people, 10 dental practices, and endo was new. Everybody hated it, and they would just say, I'll do endo, and I won't do anything else. And everybody just referred to him for 30, 40 years. And then the endodontists come out, they started calling these guys endodontists, but they never went to training. So you could tomorrow be practice limited to ortho. If you really want a degree, there's 208 countries out there. You don't have to go to the most expensive United States of America, especially if you're just getting credentials. And then when you apply for a state license, they don't care where you went to dental school. They're like, okay, you went to dental school at Michigan, and that's got to be cool because that was the first city in the world to fluoridate their water was Grand Rapids, Michigan. That's the most sacred day in dentistry. So yeah, if you just want to do ortho, just do ortho. Practice limited ortho. If you want to keep applying to specialty programs, I'd recommend that. If you can't get in America, then I would just go to a foreign country. But I wouldn't let anybody else kill your dreams when it doesn't have to be.
Yeah, well, yeah, you hit the nail on the head. And the question is, well, if I learn ortho and I limit my practice to orthodontics, can I like, well, like, is it worth it? Like, if as a general dentist, I do orthodontics, like, do you think the patient pool will be different than an orthodontist, or do I necessarily need that MS like at the end of my DDS,
Well, they don't even know the difference in a DDS and a DMD. They'd always come to me, they'd say, what's the difference in a DDS and a DMD? And I'm a DDS, and I'd say, well, a DDS is a real dentist, and a DMD is a wannabe a dentist. Joke, joke, joke. Kind of like MD to DO. Nobody cares. You might think it's a really big deal. Oh, you didn't get accepted to MD school, so you went to DO? Well, first of all, that's not true. A lot of DO people didn't even apply to MD school. It's not like a leftover category. But I don't think the patients care. They don't know what a MS. They don't know what a DDS. They don't know what a DO and MD. They don't know any of that. They know if they like you. They don't know your credentials. They don't know where you're born, where you're from, where your dental school is. Some of them in Arizona couldn't find Michigan on a map, I assure you. I had a dental assistant one time. She's always talking about her dad was a Vietnam vet. And one day, and I have a picture of a globe in my office, a global map. And she asked me where Vietnam was. And I said, well, try to find it. She started looking in South America. And then I put her in the Eastern Hemisphere, and I pointed, well, here's the middle. And I started right in the middle, like in the Fertile Crescent, and she started drifting towards Africa. So, they don't know, and they don't care. They know if they like you, if you made them feel good, if they were confident in you, if they liked their team. And then when you come back, they keep seeing the same people. You want to go to the same bat station on the same bat channel at the same bat time. And that's what the DSOs are getting killed by. They're only keeping their dentists like a year. Imagine if Walgreens and CVS couldn't keep their pharmacists for more than a year. And then a lot of the reason the dentists quit, it's because they go in there and their assistant called in sick, and they're really stressed because it's like their first molar, or maybe they've only done 10 molars in their life, and they didn't sleep last night, and they're stressed. And then their assistant calls in sick, and they give them a temp. I had a standing rule with my dental assistant, Jan, of 30 years. I said, if you ever call in sick, you first call in sick and say that since I'm sick, she's going to go ahead and call in sick. I said, I'm not going in there working with the temp. And so the staff really got me a really good backup. And of course, Christine was there forever. But yeah, they just know your the energy. You're selling the invisible, so staff turnover scares them. They don't know credentials. They do like those online reviews, but I would take the online reviews even higher because, again, you're selling invisible. Try to get your online review guy say, hey, you don't have a photo. It's just that static image. Can I help you upload a photo? Let me take a picture of you on your phone and you upload it. Try to get them to upload a photo and try to get them to do the review because online reviews are killing it in things you're selling the invisible. Like I don't care about movie reviews because I know the mass market. They want 100 cop chasing car scenes and 100 M16s, and I know the Rambo crowd. In fact, if the Rambo crowd says they hate this movie, I think like Oppenheimer versus Barbie. You'd have to be a moron not to have guessed that Barbie would outsell Oppenheimer 10-1. One is a true story, a real story, and you could learn something in 3 hours. Well, Americans ain't having that. They want Barbie. And so you're everybody wanting ortho. And that's the difference between ortho now versus when I was a kid. And when I was a kid, growing up with big Catholic families in Kansas where, we had 7 kids in my family. The Hennessy's had 21. I mean, if you had 4 kids, like they thought something was wrong with you. And so in those families, only the kid so ugly he could never get married and would have to be a priest or a nun. That's the only one that got ortho. If you ever quasi had a nice smile, you weren't even a candidate. But now, with birth control, under 2 kids a family, they're all getting ortho when they're young. They're all getting it again in their 30s. They all get it again in their 40s or 50s or after they get divorced. I mean, they're going to do it for life. So I think that you're good looking. You got a great personality. You have a lot of energy. I think you won't have a problem attracting staff. You just got to retain them. Keep the karma going and get rid of anything toxic in your office. So they come in, they feel it's fun, they trust you. You're going to smile. I want to ask you a question on ortho now that you're in this internship. Invisalign made this market. But now all their patents are gone. They're number one. Like I say, I wouldn't buy their stock because it's trading at like 85 times price earnings and multiple. I mean, that's just insane. But are you Invisalign, or was it love at first sight with you and Invisalign? Or are you looking at now that all these other companies can get into like Ormco, Dentsply Sirona, 3M, Straumann, Argent, Angeline Technologies, Invista, TP Ortho, Shine, Bosch Health. I mean, there's so many. I mean, every time I turn around, there's more clear aligners. How do you see Invisalign versus all the lower cost knockoffs?
Yeah, so I read a little bit about it. I think their patent expired like relatively recently, maybe in the last 5 years. And I've been asking my colleagues and then also the faculty. And I also visited a dental lab that was the biggest, and they have in-house aligners. I asked them so what makes providers choose your in-house lab clear aligner versus Invisalign? And they said that if you want to correct minor cases, those work, but Invisalign is just a lot developed. The digital workflow and the plastic material and Invisalign can do mandibular advancements is just a lot more user friendly so providers tend to like it. I bet there are numbers on the ratios on Invisalign, how many providers choose Invisalign versus others.
I've noticed that every one of my orthodontist friends, when he gets off on a rant or she gets off on a rant, bashing Invisalign about how upset she is and everything, I always say, well, why don't you quit using them and use one of all 20 other companies? Nah, I'm not gonna do that. It's like, okay, so it's kind of like bitching about your spouse or your kid or whatever. You love them, but you're not going far. So how long are you in this ortho internship, and where is it, and do they pay you? How much does that cost? Do you like it now that you've been in there 3 months? Because you got a lot of kids listening to you that they might want to follow your lead. Tell us about your ortho internship.
Yeah, my internship is in Eastman Institute of Oral Health. It's in Rochester, New York. There are a couple of others around the US. Um, And I really, really like it in terms of like learning orthodontics and being with the residents, and learning ortho the classical sense. The way we read papers from Steiner and Downs, and we make ABO certified models, and we wire bend and we go to tweed classes, and it's just a very classical training. Um, and yeah, and we have professors that were trained by students that were like kind of the pioneers of orthodontics way back then. So the faculty have kept the tradition of classical orthodontics. Yeah, and it's been amazing. Yeah.
Now, are you thinking about after this internship a year, are you going to reapply to ortho schools? And how many ortho schools are there, and how many did you apply to?
Yeah, so there's about 60 ortho schools. The ones you mentioned earlier, in like Europe and foreign countries, they might not be a American board like certified schools. So you might get the training, but then like the US, you wouldn't be able to market yourself as an orthodontist in the US. There's like
Well, that's a
between.
very legal statement you made. So that's a very legal statement. I mean, you can say practice limited to, I mean, I'm not a lawyer, so, you got to ask a lawyer, but you got to double check with that lawyer. And remember, the most confusing word out there is the United States of America, because you got 50 states and the state laws and, the variance is huge. In fact, you look at some of these DSOs, there are several states they avoid. They won't even go there because they view the dental board and the dental society as hostile towards DSOs, and they've been able to keep them all out. Like I say, you could say practice limited orthodontics, but it would depend on the state of what you could actually call it. And like I say, that implantology deal played out very well in Texas, where the ADA was schooled that you don't have any legal rights to tell anyone to do anything. You just make
Yeah,
recommendations to your members. But go continue what you're saying though.
100% agree. But as far as between Canadian and North American schools, there's about 60, and they range from
60
two
dental schools or 60 orthodontic programs?
60 orthodontic programs.
Wow.
Yeah. And the range is huge, from 2 years to 3 years, to schools that pay you stipend, to schools that cost, 140 a year, for 2 to 3 years. And it's a big, it's a big decision. Um, yeah.
Well, I mean, I don't mean to say this rude, but I mean, you are a baby. You're only 26. I mean, I'm not only old enough to be your dad, I'm old enough to be your grandpa. So 3 years sounds like a long time when let's just say you were 30 for easy math. At 30, 3 years would be 10% of your life. But at 60, it'd only be 5% of your life. That's why. Remember when you were in grammar school and you were out for the summer and you just couldn't even comprehend that you wouldn't have school the whole summer and it seemed like your entire lifetime? Well, gosh darn, if you're 8 years old, 3 months is, that's a big chunk of your life. But when you're 60, I mean, I can't believe it's August right now, August 21st. I mean, June, July, this summer it was one blink of an eye. So 3 years is not a long time. I know it sounds like a long time when you're 26, but it's not a long time at all. I would follow your passion. I mean, if part of your self-esteem and your mojo is you got to go to one of these 60 orthodontic residency programs, I'd keep doing it. But if you want to know what the business side of me says, if you need a degree, I'd rather live in Aruba than Michigan. I mean, I don't know. I hear Aruba's got better beaches than Michigan. It could be a rumor, but yeah, I would just do what is your heart and feelings want to do?
Yeah, well, the reason I emailed you is because so the salary for a general dentist is about 800 a day. For an orthodontist is about 1,200 to 1,500.
So how much for a
And
general dentist salary? How much did you say it
is
was?
about is about $800 a day.
And what market is that? What market are you talking about?
Well, like for a new grad, and I've just kind of like averaged around. Well, obviously there's 50 states, but like Michigan per se.
So are you in Michigan right now?
Well, Rochester, New York, but
Okay,
but
Rochester, New York.
it's the same
But
like
but
Northeast.
the general dentist day rate around Rochester and Michigan, and where you looked, is about $800 a day, and the orthodontist day rate is what?
Is about from 1,200 to 1,500.
Is what
Yeah.
again? Is from what?
1,200 to 1,500.
Okay. Well, let's talk about some of that right there. So the first thing I want to say about that is basically state board of dental examiners and lawsuits, right? So what the DSOs did? First of all, this is wave two of the DSOs. I mean, I'm so old. The first one that I saw was Orthodontic Centers of America. And that went on the New York Stock Exchange, got $1 billion valuation. And then there's about 12 on NASDAQ, and they all died. And this is the second generation. So this is 2.0, and not any of those have gone public, so they're not even real. They're still just figuring out what's going on. But what these DSO CEOs, and I've interviewed every major DSO founder, dentist, CEO on Dentistry Uncensored. And what they're telling me is when they first came out, they were like implants. You know, the two big money makers is you come in with a toothache, and I'm either going to do a root canal, billet, and crown for $2,500, or I'm going to extract that tooth, bone graft it, place an implant, and restore the crown, you know, like $3,000. And if you can't convert a toothache to a root canal, billet, and crown, or an extraction implant and a crown, you just missed out on all the high margin stuff, because the rates you're going to get for a cleaning exam and an x-ray and a filling is barely above cost to even lose money. Like look at Arizona. You know, they'll pay you $60 for a cleaning, and the hygienist gets $50 an hour. You don't have to be Galileo or Sir Isaac Newton to realize that's tough. But then you'll be in that room for an hour doing a cleaning exam and a half set of bite wings a year or whatever, and you might do, you know, like $100 or $150 or something. Then you go in the other room and pull 4 wisdom teeth, and they give you $300 a tooth. And you have, and I mean, so a root canal, you spend an hour in there and give it. So here's what the DSOs did at first. They started putting all their people through implant school. And then they come out and they'd place their first 10 implants. Well, I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're Carl Misch. Your first 10 implants don't work out that well. And then when there's a suit, then they're like, oh, well, David learned it in a Holiday Inn, and he's not an oral surgeon or a periodontist, and it failed, and it just lawsuit crazy. And they realize that, you know, it's a lot cheaper to have a periodontist or an oral surgeon come in and place the implants. Same thing with root canals. It's just cheaper to get into us. But why is it cheaper? Why is it more profitable? Because if a general dentist bills a root canal to their local Delta, they might only get $800. But if an endodontist does it, he gets like $1,500. So paying an associate 25%, you make a lot more money paying a specialist 40%. Because their fees are so much higher. So I don't know, I'm not an expert in orthodontic billing insurance for all 50 states. And like when people say Delta Dental, they act like it's a McDonald's. I mean, there's like 30 different Delta Dentals. So who are you talking about? And there's vast differences between, Delta Dental of Wisconsin or Michigan versus Arizona or California. I mean, it's just huge. But a lot of the DSOs you see now, only orthodontists are doing their ortho, only endodontists are doing their molar endo, and only oral surgeons or periodontists replace their implants. And they all will tell you it's because of insurance reimbursement fees. I mean, legal lawsuits would be number 2. But just that, you know, so if all the insurance companies are going to give more to a specialist, but all the lawyers are going to hold us to the same standard of care. I mean, when I have a root canal fail, they're not going to bring in a bunch of pediatric dentists doing pulpotomies. They're going to bring in a bunch of endodontists. So I got paid for a $15,000 Ford Escort, but when it fails and breaks down, they're going to judge it like it was a $30,000 Ford Taurus. So it's completely illogical. It's completely unfair, but that's the real world. The world is imperfect, and you're always dealing with all these imperfect things. So again, finish your deal. So since the orthodontist day rate is almost $800 a day for general dentists and almost $1,600 a day for an orthodontist, I mean, it's almost twice as much. Is that making you think you'll apply to ortho residency or ortho schools again?
Well, yeah, yes. But if I could find like a middle ground where like an OSO or private will hire me for like a thousand or 1,200, maybe like a cheaper rate than they would a specialist. And since I have a year of solid orthodontic training, I would do that if I can get straight to work right away because I'm gaining a lot of experience. Because in residency, you see about 6 to 7 cases a day. In the real world, for orthodontics, you see like 80 to 100. So like the learning is a lot faster in the real world compared to going through school. And I just feel like, yeah, I'm not paying tuition, I'm getting paid. So overall, if I can find a good like pay doing orthodontics, and I would lean more towards that.
So Orthodontic Centers of America was a incredible business model story that is still past many people. But Orthodontic Centers of America realized that orthodontists do something very bizarre. I mean, imagine you got great hair. I don't have to cut my hair. I'm a bald on top. But how often do you get your hair cut, and how much do you pay to get your hair cut?
3 weeks, $20.
Okay, so $20 3 weeks. Let's say it's 4 weeks, $25. Okay, imagine you go get your haircut, and the barber says, "Well, David, you want your haircut? It's $25 a month, and you're gonna get your haircut for the next 2 months. So we need $25 times 24. So that is $25 times 24. That's $600. And David, what I need $200 down, and then I'll finance the remaining $400 at 10% interest." I mean, what would you say?
No.
Yeah, it's like, what do you? Well, that's what orthodontists say every day. I mean, you come in, they need a pano and a SAF. Those are and study models. Those are all three $1 each. A pano, a SAF, study models. I mean, what is that? $1, $3. You got $3 into this, and then they're going to come out and say, "Okay, it's $5,000. I need $2,000 down." Why? Are you going to prepay your rent, mortgage, equipment, build out computer, insurance, update, your dental assistants? Are you going to prepay all these people? Hell no. You haven't absorbed any of the costs, but you want 30, 40, 50% down. And then you're going to finance the back half? How are you going to finance the back half? You haven't even paid the rent. I mean, for 24 months from now, you haven't paid your you probably won't even have your same dental assistant 24 months. I mean, what? So Orthodontic Centers of America. This guy came out, and Peter Lazara, and he said, "Oh my God," he said, "This is insane." So he just came out and said $0 down because he figured he could eat the pano, the SAF, and the study models for $3 to get a new patient. Are you kidding me? And then he said, $199 a month for 24 months, no credit check. I mean, why does he need a credit check? He just banded you in orthodontics. What are you going to do? Never come back? You'll be back when you have full brackets on and one of them pops off and stuck in your lip, whatever. He was just like Walmart. He only had about a 1% never come back. You know, Walmart, they warranty everything. And they know that at least 1% of all people are broken inside. And I mean, look at Jeffrey Dahmer. He ate over a dozen people. I would assume something's not right in his head. He's probably not the most normal guy at birth. And so, but only 1% Walmart, they said, "We're not going to ask questions. We're not going to argue with you. We're not going to lose your loyalty because we want you to come back every week." So they just take no questions asked, and it's about 1% of sales. And that's what Orthodontic Centers in America. But with no down payment in economics, that's called an economic barrier to entry. Why would you want to say, well, to come to my course, I'm going to need to make a reservation. I need $1,000. There's 1,000 reasons why they're not going to jump over that barrier. It's just too much. And the same thing like when you go to a new website. I mean, okay, they want me to, I'll give them my email. Maybe I'll give them my text. They can text me something. But if I got to fill out 27 questions, I'm gone. I mean, I can find that information somewhere where I don't have to do all that stuff. So Orthodontic Centers of America, I've told so many people about that, and finally some people around Arizona are doing it, where you'll go into a small town and there'll be a billboard right in front. Orthodontics, $0 down, 0% interest, $199 a month for 24 months. No one's denied, everyone's approved, and just that finance got them $1 billion valuation. So you were asking me if the consumer cared if you were an MS or not, or a DDS or a DMD or an MD or a DO. My God, the minute you say $0 down, 0% interest, no patient is denied credit, and we'll do your orthodontics for $199 a month for 24 months, and they were just rock stars overnight. I mean, just rock stars. So I guarantee you, incentives matter. And then that's why your collection policy, you go to McDonald's, you order a hamburger, the 15-year-old says, I need $3. And if you say, well, I don't have $3, they'll just give me the food and bill me. I mean, they look at you like you were drunk. But in dentistry, they do it all day long. Whatever you owe, we'll bill your insurance. We don't want an economic barrier. We don't want to say, oh, let's do a predetermination because you came in here impulsive buying. You're hot. You're excited. You want to go now. And then we're going to say, oh, pour a bucket of cold water on them because we want to do an insurance. No. We deal with so much insurance, with so little staff turnover, with so much good software and technology and all that stuff. We'll guesstimate what your insurance is going to pay, and we'll be responsible for it. If we say it's going to pay $1 and it pays 50 cents, we'll eat it. We're not going to freak you out because then you're not going to close. And what general dentists don't realize is that if the patients come from word-of-mouth referral, they all close. But if they're coming from marketing and advertising and Instagram and your social medias, only about 1 out of 3 are closing. That's why you got to have your reviews online. That's why you got to try to get your patient to upload the photo so they look more genuine, because trust is everything when you're selling the invisible. They can switch out. They can make their own pizza, but they just want the convenience to have Pizza Hut to do it and deliver it. But when it's a root canal and braces or a colonoscopy or all this stuff like that, they're trying to cling to how do you make a good decision to find a good doctor. So finance is far more important than credentials. Your business model is far more than credentials. And if you just really want to get an MS degree, and you said some of them are 2 years, some are 3 years, I bet you could find some 18 months in the Dominican Republic, somewhere. Go find a fun place to live for 2 or 3 years and get that. You said, where can you find an opportunity to do only orthodontics as a general practitioner in an OSO, Smile Docs, private practice? Are the OSOs willing to hire general dentists? I'm willing to move to all 50 states. Here's what I would, you got to sell yourself. I would sell them on the Orthodontic Salaries of America business. What you want to do is this. You want to do Orthodontic Salaries of America. They were on the New York Stock Exchange, $1 billion valuation. You're going to do it for whatever the fee is. There's been a lot of inflation. So I don't know what fee you want, but if everybody's charging $6,000, I'd try to be faster, easier, higher quality, lower in price, and make it smaller. I mean, play with a full hand, because if you're not playing with a full hand, if someone ever does develop a full hand, they're going to mow you over and you're dead on arrival. So I would find what the average orthodontic cost is, what their average margin is. So if, say, all the orthodontists in your area are charging $5,000, and they're pretty honest with you, they'll just tell you, what is your overhead? And they'll probably say 50%. Okay, so it's $5,000, and you're going to do it for 50% overhead. So they got $2,500. So maybe you'll give up $500. And maybe you'll say, if they're all doing it $5,000, maybe you do it $4,500. Maybe you want the soft $39.99 or whatever. But look at this. They're paying a hygienist $50 an hour to do one patient an hour, and they're maybe getting paid $60 from insurance for a cleaning, and who knows if you want to give them the exam fee or the associate. I always pay the owner-operator the same as I'd own an associate, so I could separate the dollars I was making from having my capital employed in a dental office versus the dollars I'm making because I went to dental school and I'm a dentist. So I always paid myself as an associate so I could separate out the dentist associate cost, the cost of a dentist providing dental services versus the profit dollars from having capital employed in a dental office. And then on the ortho room, if you're doing $200 a month for 24 months, back to the Orthodontic Salaries of America, well, obviously the orthodontists are flipping those chairs every 15 minutes. So let's just say you're slow and you just did every half hour. So the hygienist is doing $100 an hour and you're paying her $50. And now in the ortho room, you're doing $400 an hour. And you want a day rate of $1,000. I mean, it's a no-brainer that your ortho room could free and clear 2 to 3 times the net income profit dollars as a hygiene room. I mean, there's just no question to ask. And then the second thing is immigration. You're an immigrant. You were born in Taiwan. There's been some countries around that have collapsed lately. One of them is Venezuela. Do you know how many Venezuelan orthodontists came to America and just feel lucky they made in? You know how many people in Venezuela wanted to get in, but they couldn't get in because, the southern wall is so horrible. I mean, they closed down Ellis Island. Now everybody wants to build a wall. I mean, my God. I mean, Ellis Island was the reason we're the number one superpower in the world, and they closed it down shortly after the Bolshevik Revolution that came to America, started all the unions. First thing they did is close down Ellis Island. The demand stopped, and it took them and everybody was game for, it always grew like this, and they didn't realize that the wave of immigrants stopped. It took about 10 years till 1929, the whole damn thing collapsed. Now, since I graduated from high school in 1980, this economy hasn't grown. I mean, it's grown about 1.5% on average for 40 years, while inflation has been 2%. And it's all because of that wall and closing down Ellis Island. But of the general dentists I know that are really smart, especially in Miami, where a lot of Venezuelans went, a lot of them are going to southern states, that are heavy Latino. I know a general dentist that hired 3 Venezuelan orthodontists for $25 an hour. And they flip the room every 20 minutes. And he just goes in there and does ortho checks. And he said, tell you the truth, every time I go in there, I would just be honest. I say, okay, now tell me what you did. And it sounds to the patient like he wants to know, but the orthodontist was really educating the dentist on how ortho works. They taught him how to do everything. And my gosh, you could just open up your own. If you had a really good location in a really hot spot for braces, for ortho, like I noticed down there in the South, especially as you get close to the Mexican line, all the Mexican dentists put on braces, but all the girls getting it want clear aligners. So I tell everybody, if you went right on the border of San Diego, Tijuana, or Douglas and Agua Prieta, or El Paso and Juarez, just get on that border, get a location right on the border so they're seeing it as they cross the border to go to work, or as they're Americans going in to get cheaper, or they'll say, hey, tired of all Mexican braces being bands and wires? Stop here for clear aligners. And the brand, of course, is Invisalign. Those guys have advertised so much. I've lectured in 50 countries, and my boys were always blown away. I don't care if we were eating at a restaurant in Cambodia, or I don't care where it was. Anywhere around the world. Once the waitress or waiter found out that I was a dentist, first question out of their mouth was Invisalign. It was the first question out. And then 30 years ago, when I was your age, it was all about the new bleaching, the new whiteners. Do they work? Would you do it to your teeth? Blah, blah, blah. Now it's all Invisalign from here to Kathmandu. I've seen it everywhere. So, I don't know. That's a lot to think about. But, my gosh, I would. In fact, are you single?
Yeah.
Are you looking for a spouse?
Well, open to it.
I would marry a Venezuelan orthodontist. I'd go on your dating profile looking for a foreign trained orthodontist living in America without a license. Oh my God, that would just be the perfect marriage. My gosh. What other questions did you have to ask me? I see your questions here, but I don't know if.
Well, so because I'm also on a student visa here, I can't open up a practice right away. I need to work for someone next year. And I just want to find an ortho job. And do you know where I should start? If say I don't have my MS, but I have ortho training background.
Well, I would get on Dentaltown, and they got 30, 40 categories, and one of them's orthodontics, and I would just ask your community. And what's great about Dentaltown or OrthotTown is you can't become a member unless you register. It's not a B2C site. It's not for consumers to come on and ask about their root canal. It's only dentists, and if you get specific, and you can target it for states, like when you post it, it'll post a message board, but you could say, hit all the people in Washington, or Canada, or Taiwan, or whatever. But I would start asking your network, and it's not what you know, it's who you know. It's kind of like in life. Life isn't fair. You get what you negotiate, and life isn't fair. You get what you hustle. And I would just start working the Orthodontic Network, and I'd start doing it digitally. I'd start doing it online. I would try to register on OrthoTown. Maybe they'll let you join. They won't let me join because I'm not an orthodontist, but maybe you're in an ortho residency and say I referred. Maybe at least if they're going to deny you, they'll probably at least run it by me and I'll plead your case to get on OrthoTown. But my gosh, I would just start working that work. And the other thing is your providers. So who sells all the orthodontic stuff? Shine, Patterson, all those deals. I mean, when you, let's say that you just came to Detroit, Michigan, or Beverly Hills, and you're looking for a location, the first thing you do is you go talk to the Shine reps, the Patterson reps, and they'll just start telling you. I mean, they've been selling supplies for forever, and they'll say, well, I know. Or you could ask questions. Where are all your new operatories being ordered? What part of the valley here? And they'll say, oh, well, it's not on the west side. It's not on the south side. It's way out east. This is the area that's booming. The other thing you can do is go to the, gosh, I forgot who does it, but it's one of the Health and Human Services or whatever, but they have a website where they have the Americans have unmet needs for healthcare providers. And so they've already done the demographics. And I looked it up in dentistry. I already knew which towns do not even have an orthodontist. I mean, there are, when dental schools say, well, are we going to do Invisalign or molar endo? And they say, well, if you want to learn ortho, you should go to ortho school. I'm sorry, I'm graduating, and half of America lives in the rural. And those towns do not have any of the 12 specialties by the American Dental Association. So telling me that you're not going to let me do Invisalign and molar endo and pull wisdom teeth in dental school when half of us are going to go to Phoenix and LA and Detroit. But the other half are going to go to Bumblebutt, Iowa, Beeville, Texas, Eloy, Arizona, Fort Worth, Kansas, and there's no specialties there. So you got to learn that specialties. And you could go there, and if you had a Venezuelan orthodontist to go with you, that's a big deal. But here's what I would figure out with the orthodontic deals. They do a lot of referrals, a lot of word of mouth. And what these endodontists that don't want to go to endo school, and what they did in the past, well, I've been watching it for 35 years. I can give you a dozen names of people that did this. They'd go to rural towns. They'd drive around in a camper and look at all these small towns. And maybe they were from Michigan where it's cold, and they're driving around, New Mexico and Arizona and looking at all these hot towns. And they'll pull into a town and say, okay, it's got 12 dentists. And they'll go pull in those 12 dentists, and half of them don't even do molar endo. And they say, in Beeville, if you want to endodontist, you got to drive an hour to Corpus Christi or an hour and a half to San Antonio. And then the person always says, screw that, just pull it, and, whatever. And they found, one guy found a town, he wanted to do molar endo, practice them into molar endo. He found a town in New Mexico with 11 dentists, and none of them did molar. And he said, look, I'm not an endodontist, but I swear to God, I just practice some endo. If you want me to do the buildup or not, let me know. If you want it with amalgam, which is the best, or if you want composite, I don't care. Oh, my God, he was booked up. Same thing with pediatric dentistry. You find any small town with 10 dentists, and they're all males, none of them want to work on a kid. I'd rather work at Taco Bell than be a pediatric dentist. I swear to God, if you gave me a specialty degree in pediatric dentist, I'd take it right to a shredder. I mean, God bless them. I don't know how they do it, but my heart just beats out of my chest. The mom's down there rubbing its leg. I mean, it's just hell. And so you could go start looking for rural towns. And a lot of kids your age, they say, well, I want to live in Beverly Hills. Okay, well, then live in Beverly Hills. But you can have an hour commute to work, especially considering it's going to be autonomous driving cars before you know it. Like in Phoenix, if you order an Uber, it's cheaper to get a Waymo because they don't have a driver. And I'll tell you what, it was weird the first time this car pulled up to my house and there's no driver, and like an idiot, I must be thinking myself less than a lab rat because I got right in the car. And then with this is how people are so bad at making decisions, which is why it's so easy to be rich, is after about 2 or 3 years of the Google doing this, they had one mortality car wreck. It ran over a jaywalker in the bar district of Tempe. Oh, yeah. Oh, wow. But they didn't even tell you that on that exact day, real life humans killed 6 other people with a car. There's this one death, and they want to shut down the whole industry. But let's look at that model somewhere else. Let's look at the Air Force. The Air Force is all going to drones because they say a cruise missile has a 0%, almost a 0% chance of operator error. But all their plane crashes, like the last one at San Francisco, the guy was coming in for a landing, then aborted the landing at the last minute. I mean, so automatic cruise missiles are are 10 times better than pilots flying a jet. Not to mention, you don't have to have all that stuff in there for, to have a live human in the cockpit. So I would, I would, find, if you want to be, if you can get 10 dentists to refer you all their ortho in a small rural town without an orthodontist, that's within 1 hour of where you want to live. Well, baby, you're done. You're done right now. You're done. If you got, and then if you practice that town, I'm the only dentist in Beeville with practice limited to orthodontics. Well, no one said you're an orthodontist. That's the state that told them the ADA to get off the back of the implantologist, and the implantologists think about that. The oral surgeons, the periodontists, have no problem with you have to go to the oral surgeon, and then when you're done, you got to go to the general dentist. Well, I don't know. When I was little, I went to the grocery store. They had a bread place, a meat place. They had J.C. Penney's for clothes. Now they roll all that in. When you walk into a Dillon's grocery store, and the meat department's there. Hell, they got a pharmacy in there. It's all nonstop shopping. And these implantologist people, these people with big implant cases, were very, very upset at getting the runaround and not knowing who to believe. And they just wanted to go to one place that does it all. I mean, that is such a basic business. Same thing with pediatric dentists and orthodontists. I have seen, here's another thing you got to think about. I've watched this in Phoenix now for 35 years. You open up as an orthodontist, and you open up as a pediatric dentist, and at the end of the year, they each are 1X, right? But every time anybody who's motivated enough to take baby boo-boo to a pediatric dentist, to know that there's actually a specialty that just does cleaning, of course one of their questions is, will boo-boo need braces? Oh, well, to answer that question, I got to fill out a slip, and you got to drive down the street, miss work again, fill out another damn chart. And when an orthodontist and a pediatric dentist, that'd be your second spouse, I'd recommend. Marry a pediatric dentist. And you sit there and you say, oh, well, on every new patient exam, we're always going to have the orthodontist come over and check. So it's one-stop shopping. Just like Walgreens, all the pharmacies, they go in the grocery store because you put in the prescription and they say, okay, it'll take 20 minutes to fill. Well, that sucks. Well, that's why Walgreens and CVS have 20 minutes of something you can do, like shop all these aisles and all these things like that. Or in grocery stores, you can give them your prescription, then go do your shopping, come back. But my God, the Orthodontic Centers of America financial deal of 0% down, 0% interest, no patient denied. That's 20 million times more important than your credentials of whether you got an MS, which if you just tell them, what does MS stand for? Just say more shit. And they never say, really? They just say, wow. I tell them a BS is bullshit, a MS is more shit, and a PhD is piled higher and deeper. So the finances would be number one. Convenience would be number two. You setting up with a pediatric dentist, that's just the godsend. And if you guys had chemistry and were fun and you attracted fun people and everybody loved kids and no one was toxic and your average employee stayed with you 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 years, you would be an orthodontic rock star without going to ortho school. And by the way, these 12 specialties that they talk about, I'm sorry, you say there's a specialty in oral radiology. Well, who read all the x-rays before those guys were around? Oral pathology, that's pretty serious, but oral facial pain, I mean, that was general dentists doing all that stuff. And then the other thing I want to look at is, when I look at all the advancements and technologies and all these things, general dentists were usually the ones that was the innovator that found an idea. So what other questions do you have?
Yeah, and so for someone who kind of needs like a customized or like a plan, where should I go for someone to help me do the demographics, or like you said, the P's in ortho 1+1 greater than 2, or being in a rural town to do orthodontics? Where can I go to for someone to kind of help me find a plan for next year?
Well, there's two demographic guys, and I podcast them both. So if you go to Dentistry Uncensored and you type in Dentistry Uncensored demographics, these two guys Doctor demographics, Scott McDonald. I mean, that's kind of a no-brainer. I would just go to Doctor demographics. Scott McDonald, he's in Utah, and Utah is the most crowded state. If you want to be a dentist, don't go to Utah because it is the Mormon Mecca capital of the world, and every dentist, even if he doesn't want to go back to Utah, chances are if he finds a wife, half of them want to go back. Like Gilbert's got a lot of Mormons in there. But I don't know one dentist in Gilbert doesn't have family in Utah. So demographics is everything in Utah. I mean, the last thing you can do is pick the wrong location, but he does it for the whole United States. So I would go to Doctor Demographics, and I would just start working your deal. I would start realizing that orthodontics is two parts. There's adult cosmetics, that's more to do with bleaching, bonding, veneers, and you could just be that a solo, advertising to the rich, convenience, fun, extended hours, good financing, all that kind of stuff. Or you get in that bread and butter, you get in the pediatric, you team up with a pediatric dentist where, like say, now with birth control, with less than 2 kids per family, all the kids are going to get an ortho consultation, and probably 60-70% of them are going to get some type of brace and everything. That's just baked in now that families are richer. I mean, hell, the average American is making $76,000 a year as a median household income. I mean, they got big money. So obviously, if the doctor says, "Oh, they got to cross by and over by, we got to do something," they're going to do it. So that's huge. And then I would only do that with a pediatric dentist for one-stop consumer shopping. And then if you want to do adult only, it's going to come down to marketing, consumerism, financing, all that kind of stuff. And then as far as all the questions, it's just networking. And so these people listening to you, how can they contact you if they want to give you advice or talk to you? How does someone reach out to David Lee? And are you related to David Lee Roth?
No, I'm not.
Are you going to start singing "Jump" out of nowhere? But how would they contact you, David?
Well, email. Yeah.
So would you want to give out your email or not really? Or
Yeah. It's itinglee0915@gmail.com.
Okay, but tell it to remember it. So David Lee, I see where the Lee's coming from. What's 0915? You're born September 15th?
September 15th.
I guessed it?
Yes.
Okay, so what's the ITING? Iting?
That's my Chinese name.
Oh, really?
Iting Lee birthday @gmail.com.
So you just Americanized the name of David?
Yeah, well, my American teachers gave me my name, David.
The bottom line is you're on here, you're hustling, you're getting your name out. Do it with the suppliers. Talk to Invisalign. Talk to Doctor Demographics. I would just find a place you want to live and then go start looking in the rural parts and just find the first city. I don't care if they only have 2,000 people, 3,000 people. They don't have an orthodontist. But if you go find a city, a small town rural that's an hour away from where you want to live, and you just commute to work. And by the way, when you're commuting to work out of town, there's no traffic either way. You know what I mean? No one's going to that town and no one's coming back from it. And I think the world is your oyster. I've been calling it for a long time. I guarantee you, when you're as old as me, you'll probably still have your hair, but you will definitely be successful. I can just read in your energy, your karma, your hustle. You got this, buddy. The world's your oyster. Good luck to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And thank you for your podcast. It's just reaching so many people around the world. It's amazing.
All right. Well, man, thanks for the kind words, and we'll talk to you later, buddy.
Okay.
Hope to see you on the boards at Dentaltown. Because that's your membership name, right? It's Iting Lee.
That's it. That's me.
So yeah. So I'll see you on the boards.
Okay. Keep in touch. Okay.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.